Hi there, it's Nicole for Simon Says Stamp with another video featuring STAMPtember exclusive limited edition stamps and dies. Today's stamp sets are by Clearly Besotted, and they have created two exclusive stamp die combinations for us today. The first is this beautiful, elegant, magnificent Magnolia stamp set that I am going to be creating some really cool background stamping over colored images cards. These are one layer backgrounds with some very simple embellishing and lots of layering even though it's one layer. We're going to start with the Magnolia image where the flowers kind of open and the leaves are out, the larger floral image from the set. And then we're going to kind of combine a couple of sentiments from this stamp set. I'm going to be using the hello and thank you for your kindness greetings. We're going to stamp these on a background that is trimmed to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So this is A2 sized. It's going to completely fill the background of our card. I'm using the Misty to line this up and some Hero Arts Intense Black ink to stamp my images. There's also a coordinating die available, so if you want to do even more layering, you could pick up the stamp die combination. Please remember that anything that is a limited edition exclusive during STAMPtember, once these have sold out, they are completely gone and Simon Says Stamp will not restock them. So if there's something that you love from one of the collaboration stamp sets, grab that up fast. I am going to speed through the coloring since I'm doing two very coloring intensive cards today just to help speed up this pretty long video. I left it in for those who enjoy the coloring process though, so you can see the images come to life. For both cards, we're going to start coloring in start the card by coloring in the images. So I have filled the bottom left corner and the top right with this beautiful, magnificent Magnolia. And then I'm going to color it in with Copic markers. The flowers for this card are colored with RV0000, RV00, RV52, 55, 66, and 69. Quite a few colors, but I really wanted this flower to come to life on this beautiful card. The RV69 and even the 66 are used very sparingly. The rest of the colors are the majority of the flower, and I kind of keep going over them just to get the effect I want. In fact, after I had colored in the flowers, I even went in with my RV69 and would add just a little additional darkening down towards the center of the flower without blending it out in most cases. The layering for this card is what makes it so special and what really creates that beautiful visual interest. If you like a little bit more simple design, you could color in these images and leave this panel as is, and it would be absolutely beautiful as well. Clearly Besotted does some really beautiful outline floral images. What I love is that with the two exclusives today, they are two very completely different looks. So if you like florals and more elegant sentiments and font for your greetings, the Magnificent Magnolia stamp set is for you. If you like the cutesy, more, I guess cutesy is the right word, stamp set, the Lift Me stamp set is going to be for you. It is got these cute little hot air balloons and critters or kids that you can attach to the hot air balloons and lots of kind of more fun type images rather than elegant. The leaves for my card are yellow green 93, 95, and 99. I again chose a little bit deeper, richer green colors rather than bright greens. This is going to be especially important when I go to stamp my background, which is going to have that same green color really pulled from the greens that I used for my Copic markers. Both flowers in my card are going to be colored exactly the same. And then I'm going to go around the outline of the flower with G000. This is pale green, and it's a completely different green than the green I used in the leaves, but it works so well because it just kind of outlines and highlights the flower without overpowering the design. We'll go ahead and color the other flower in the other corner exactly the same, and then we can move on to finishing the card. Now we're going to stamp the background to add a little bit of interest and distressing. I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Good Reading background. This is kind of a texty type background. This is my favorite kind of background to add over the top of a stamped background. I used a piece of scrap paper to stamp off my design first, and it was still a little too light, so I'm going to go ahead and ink this up again. I'm using Simon Says Stamp Willow ink. I think the color of this ink matches the leaves pretty nicely. I did ink up the stamp, and I kind of blotted a little bit of the ink off with a paper towel, and then I stamped it onto my background, providing that awesome kind of grungy text look. And it's perfectly okay that it's stamped over the top of everything. That was the look I was going for. The flowers still really stand out. Now I'm going to add some finishing details with a white pen, adding some nice little highlights, kind of following the design of the flower with little white lines and dots. This is my favorite way to add highlights. If you follow my channel already, you've probably seen me do this before. I love this white pen. I have a stash of them on hand at all times. I'm even going to add some highlights to the leaves, kind of following the center of the leaves. I don't want to go too much over the top, just add a little bit. This card is completely one layer, meaning this whole panel is going to be flat. We will add some little embellishments, but it is a flat card. So it's going to be super easy to go through the mail. But it still has lots of dimension with the look of so many layers. When stamping these backgrounds, I highly recommend using a stamp positioner tool of some sort. It helps with precision, and if you need to stamp it more than once, it lines up. As you saw me stamp the image, and I tried to do the second generation stamping, and it really just was too light, so I was able to ink up my stamp again and go back over it. To add even more interest and definition to the edges of the panel, I'm taking some peeled paint distress ink, and starting off the edge of my paper, I'm just going to blend this into the edges to soften those up a little bit. Plus, the peeled paint matches this Willow dye ink that I used for the background perfectly. I like to start off the edges especially. This is smooth white cardstock and not a watercolor or Bristol Smooth cardstock, so you don't tend to get a blend, which is not what we're going for today anyway, but I don't want any harsh ink blending tool lines. The final finishing details for this card is going to be some Nouveau crystal drops in woodland green. And I'm going to add a few of those kind of scattered throughout, mostly in the text area of the design. I did go back with my G000 pale green Copic marker, and I just kind of drew in that outline a little bit more in a couple places where I thought it was a little faint. I love adding the Nouveau crystal drops, though. They add just a little touch of something to the card without overpowering. I think sequins or little clear droplets would be cute here as well. You could also leave the card as is. It's really pretty and very simple. I'm going to add those woodland green crystal drops in varying sizes. Most of them are fairly small. I don't want anything too big here. I'm also going to take some glossy accents and go over the center of each of the flowers to make them raised and glossy when completely dry, which you'll see in the finished card photos at the beginning and end of this video. If you wanted them to be sparkly or wanted the whole flower to be sparkly, the Wink of Stella Clear Glitter Brush Pen would be a fun option, or Nuvo Crystal Drops in White Blizzard is always one of my favorite things to do. It will go on and have kind of a milky finish, but it will dry completely clear and it'll leave a nice layer of sparkle all over. Just a nice fine layer of the glossy accents all over the center of the flower. And again, once this is dry, it's going to dry completely clear and just be raised and glossy, and you'll see the color underneath that we used with the Copic markers. I used some Morning Dew Nuvo Crystal Drops to add dewdrops to some of the leaves. That was the final thing I did. Also some of the flower petals. I didn't go too over the top here, just added a few here and there. This is a nice, it's not completely clear, but it's fairly clear. It's my favorite way to add those dewdrops to floral images. Let's create our second card now. This is the same technique, but a completely different look with the Lift Me Up stamp set. This is going to be more fun and whimsical with these cute hot air balloons. Again, we're going to create our background, and this is all going to be one layer. If you don't want to stamp over the top of these images, you could always use the coordinating dies and die cut them and pop them in place over a background. Maybe you want to do the small hot air balloons all over the background and the stars and things, and then pop up the larger balloon images. I think that would be super cute as well. We're going to start with the Intense Black ink again, ink up our images, and then press them into our cardstock. I stamped as many as I could with one press of my Misty, and I made sure to make the smaller hot air balloons especially hang off the edges of the panel. This gives the illusion of a larger image that we've trimmed down, and so that not everything looks like it's just floating out there in outer space. It's super easy to line up the baskets with the larger hot air balloon images. These are so cute. There's actually 4 different ones. There's a cat, a bunny, a chick, which are the 3 I use. There's also a bear, and then the smaller hot air balloon. For the larger balloons, there's a boy and a girl. There is a dog, a cat, and a bunny. So you can create all kinds of different scenes and pick whichever basket to mix and match with the hot air balloon that you like. There's several cloud images, stars, and even a little sunshine. And a moon, it looks like. So lots of fun ways to create some really cute scenes. We have just a couple more images to finish this off. I move this around depending on where I'm going to put the image. And then I also want to add in these stars. I think these are going to be a great filler in addition to the Nuvo Crystal Drops that I will use at the end of the video when I'm done doing all of my coloring and inking to fill in the white space and really make this a whimsical design. Just like the magnificent Magnolia, we're going to color all of these images in with Copic markers. If you wanted to, you could also stamp everything on Bristol Smooth cardstock. This goes for the Magnolia card as well. Color in with some Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers and do the very same kind of design, stamping over the whole background with an ink and adding in some blending and things. You're just going to get a little bit more movement. Plus, if you use water-based inks for your background stamping instead of a dye ink with the water-based zigs, you will have a little bit more freedom to maybe kind of move some ink around. You'll see what I mean here in a second. Even though I didn't use that paper for this, I don't want to cover up the faces, anything that's light. So in this case, the face on the little girl and the face on the bunny in the basket, I don't really want text over them. So I'm going to mask those off, although I didn't create exact masks. Other than that, I don't mind the text all over the background. Text is my favorite way to add a background stamping over the design, but other small images or design, I guess I should say, works well and is really cute as well. I'll link to another video at the end of this one where I used a floral design stamp all over the background. For the small balloons, I want them to be rainbow color. I did leave in the coloring. I know it's super fast, but there's so much coloring on this. I wanted to speed it up so we weren't sitting here for an hour while I colored. The colors I'm using are shown across the top of the screen, so that if any time you're wondering exactly which marker colors I used for what area of the image, you can find them there. I opted to go with more traditional cat and bunny colors for these two last hot air balloons. You could also definitely go colorful if you wanted to. With the bright rainbow, smaller hot air balloons, the rainbow color of the stars, and then the color we're going to add to the background, I decided that the neutrals might kind of help balance it all out a little bit. Once I have everything colored in, just like my first card, I'm going to take that pale green G000 marker and trace around my images. Then I'm going to put my panel in my MISTI, and this time we're using the tiny alphabet background from Simon Says Stamp with the Simon Says Stamp Mint dye ink. This is a very light dye ink, so it's going to be a very subtle text background. I love that it's at a diagonal, and I love that there are no words to really read. Much like the good reading background we used on the first card, there's the background, it's more of a subtle distressing than anything. Now, I used a little post-it tape to cover up the face of the bunny and the little girl so that there wouldn't be text going across their faces, and then I just removed it. So no fancy masking there. I didn't actually stamp it and cut out a mask. Again, I'm going to soften the edges of my panel, this time with Cracked Pistachio Distress ink. This matches the mint color we used for the text background perfectly. And here's what our card looks like. Now, this panel isn't going to be completely one layer. We're going to use or add a die cut hello sentiment and also stamp the You Lift Me Up phrase from the Lift Me Up stamp set on some black cardstock, trim it into a white strip, and pop it up with foam adhesive. I'm adding some highlight detail, pretty minimal to this design as well. I'm not going to go too much, just a little bit here and there. I added black glaze pen to all the eyes to really make them pop and stand out. Once the black glaze pen is completely dry, I'm going to go back with my white pen and add some highlights, especially to the large critter hot air balloons. It makes a huge difference. A little highlight to the beak on the chick hot air balloon. And I'm not sure that the black is completely dry yet on my balloon, so I let it dry for just a couple more seconds. And then I'm going to go in and add those highlights. Makes a huge difference to the faces. Now I'm taking that phrase from the You Lift Me Up stamp set, stamping it on black cardstock with a clear embossing ink, sprinkling on white embossing powder, tapping off the excess, and then we'll heat set this with our heat tool. Make sure your heat tool is good and hot before you take it to your sentiment or to whatever you're embossing. That will help with warping. And then I just trim that into a thin strip. I'm backing the front and back of a piece of Fun Foam with Stick It adhesive. It's super sticky adhesive, and it's going to make a dimensional sticker when we die cut from it. When I have to stick it on the front and back, I like to run it through my die cutting machine to make sure the adhesive is really secure to the fun foam. Then I'm going to remove one of the sides and replace that with, in this case, just some regular smooth white cardstock. And then I'm die cutting the Simon Says stamp Script Hello die from this. There's a shadow for this die as well, but I'm only going to use the actual sentiment here. And then I'm going to just trim this out. I think it's easier to ink up my greetings when they're still stuck in the entire piece of paper. And I'm going to use the cracked pistachio ink to do an ombre effect for my sentiment. So it's going to be darker down near the bottom and lighter up near the top. When you pop it out of here, then the back is going to be sticky too. It makes it a dimensional sticker. I'm trimming up the ends of my stamped and embossed greeting, and we're going to pop all of our sentiments up. I love these foam adhesive strips. They work perfectly on small sentiment strips that you want to add to a card. We're going to peel off the backing paper from these and then center this kind of down near the bottom edge where there's a nice open area. I purposely kind of left that area a bit open so I wouldn't be covering up any faces, especially when I added my sentiments. I'm going to pop out the little areas in my Hello greeting with the Spellbinders Tool-in-One. They die cut all the way through, but they tend to stick a little bit, and it's super sticky, so it's almost like a dimensional sticker, which is awesome. We're going to pop this right above our sentiment strip, press that down in place, and there is our fun greeting that really fills in some nice white space. I'm going to take some glossy accents now and add glossy accents to the beak on the chick, and we're going to trace the word hello with our glossy accents so it has a glossy raised finish as well. It's going to help that ink stand out a little bit more and make the sentiment stand out. I have this fine tip nozzle on the tip of my glossy accents bottle, which works great for working in small areas like this. This dries pretty quickly. I would probably give it an hour or so to completely dry. I did go ahead and add Nuvo crystal drops all over my background and let everything dry all at once. Our Nuvo crystal drops are going to be in pretty much all of the same colors we used, rainbow color. So we've got some dandelion yellow, red berry, and we're going to add small little drops all over to fill in all of the area. This is green apple. I've got my ripened pumpkin here. So this is our orange color. And then for the blue, I did like a midnight blue color. I thought out of the colors I owned, this one matched the best. And the final thing we're going to do for this panel is make our stars shimmery and glittery, like with an iridescent frost to them. And I'm going to use the Nuvo crystal drops in White Blizzard to do a nice little layer all over these. It kind of disguises the color when it goes on wet, but it will dry completely clear and they will all have a nice, awesome, sparkly finish. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these two cards featuring background stamping over colored images using the limited edition exclusive clearly besotted stamp sets for Simon Says Stamp STAMPtember. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says stamps and dies you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.